Good afternoon, everybody. It's Kendall again from Sager Family Farm. And today we're going to be doing an update on our caterpillars. So this is week 2 of our caterpillars. So last week we took a look at them, and this week we're going to see how they've grown. So if you're new here, over here, you can ask me questions. I can't see or hear you, and no one else can see or hear you. So this is the only way you can ask me questions, and only I can see what you're typing and what your questions are. So you can ask me anything about our butterflies, caterpillars, or my farm at the very end. I usually get to questions at the end just because it's a little tricky to show you guys cool pictures and videos and answer questions all at the same time. And sometimes I have questions for you, and when I'm ready for those, they'll pop up down here and you can click on some of the answers, but I'll show you those when I'm ready for them. So without further ado, let's take a look at our caterpillars. It looks like a few people are saying hi to me, so hi everybody. So let's take a look at our caterpillars. So I have some pictures of our caterpillars from last week and from this week, and I also have them behind me if you guys have any extra questions about them. But let's take a look. So just as a reminder, I am raising 2 types of caterpillars. And they will eventually turn into the yellow and black butterfly, which is the Anis swallowtail. So very common here in North America. And then the other caterpillar I'm raising is the monarch butterfly, which turns into this beautiful orange and black butterfly. They're both pretty big butterflies, so they have a wingspan of approximately 3 inches. So definitely pretty big and pretty cool butterflies. And especially I'm really excited about the monarchs because monarchs, there's a lot of discussion about putting them on the endangered species list. They are definitely having kind of a hard time. So I'm really excited to be raising monarchs and helping out their population. So let's take a look at our Anis swallowtails first. So these are all of our caterpillars. It looks like I might be covering up one of their names, but I used your names from last week so that now we can talk about them. So the biggest caterpillar I called Hugo, and then the other 2 big ones I called Hungry and Max, and then the littler ones I called Munchie and Cruncher. So these are our 5 swallowtail caterpillars and what they looked like last week. So the biggest ones have actually gone into their next life cycle stage. So here we can see all of the instars that these caterpillars have been through. And let's take a look. Let me ask you guys a question now about what life cycle stage did this caterpillar just move into? So it's the one, so this is Hugo. So this was the biggest caterpillar here, and it transformed into something different. So down here in the bottom, you can answer, is this caterpillar, is its life cycle stage called metamorphosis? Is it called a chrysalis? Or is it called a cocoon? So this is kind of a tricky question because there's definitely a lot of these words are associated what just happened to this caterpillar. So you can see that the caterpillar usually likes to climb up on a stalk of something pretty high up. And then this one, the way it forms into this next life cycle stage is it kind of grabs on to the stick. And then let me see if I can draw over top of this and show you guys what it's doing. So right here, if you guys can see, there's like a little white line. It's attached right here and right here. So I drew my black line next to the white line. But that's like a little thread that the caterpillar made and kind of suspended itself on the stick. So it looks like we've had enough time to answer my question about what life cycle stage this is. So if you said chrysalis, that is correct. So if you said metamorphosis, it looks like a few of us said that. That is also kind of correct. So this thing, the answer I was looking for was chrysalis, but this caterpillar is going through metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is the process that the caterpillar is going through. So it was a caterpillar. Inside of the chrysalis, it's a pupa. So that's its next kind of life cycle stage. So it's also called a pupa inside of its chrysalis. And it's going through the metamorphosis process, which means its body is transforming. So its mouth parts are changing a lot, from this crunchy little caterpillar that munches on leaves to a butterfly that has a long proboscis. So metamorphosis is this big transformation that the caterpillar goes through to turn into a butterfly. So metamorphosis can also be correct. And then a few of you said cocoon, which is also, I used to use these two terms interchangeably, chrysalis and cocoon. There is a little bit of a difference. So the chrysalis is formed in a really interesting way, and it's different than a cocoon. So usually we refer to butterflies as going into a chrysalis, and other kind of critters like moths, even bees, are in cocoons because it's a constructed exterior, whereas this chrysalis is actually kind of a hardened shell underneath the skin of the caterpillar. So it sheds its skin. And let me show you guys a cool video, because I actually missed this for my caterpillars. Every time I turn around, they'd already turned into a chrysalis. So I missed them transforming. But one of the students that watches these videos, thank you so much, sent me a video of her caterpillars and one of them forming a chrysalis. So let's take a look at, oops, and I'll clear off my drawings. So this is actually, you can see the top green part is actually the chrysalis that was underneath the caterpillar's skin. And down at the bottom of this video, you can kind of see that at the bottom of the chrysalis is the skin of the caterpillar. So this chrysalis formed underneath the caterpillar's skin, and now it's wiggling out of its skin one last time. So it's going through one last molt, and then it's the chrysalis underneath. Whereas for moths, so like a silkworm, they spin a cocoon around the outside. So they actually generate something around their body. Same thing with bees. The adult bees kind of put some wax on the top, and that little larva actually kind of has a papery cocoon that it creates. These ones shed their skin, and the chrysalis is underneath. So that's the difference between a chrysalis and a cocoon. So, and usually you can just tell the difference. Butterflies form a chrysalis. Many other critters form a cocoon. So this was really cool to see. So this skin shedding process, because I missed it for the caterpillars I have that turned into a chrysalis. So let's go back and take a look at some of our pictures and what some of our other caterpillars are doing. So this was Hugo, the biggest caterpillar. So this was the first one to create a chrysalis. Here is another close-up picture of the little threads, again sent in from one of our students. So thank you so much for sharing, because I forgot to snap a picture of this too. But this caterpillar is just starting the chrysalis making process by creating its little threads. So you can see the little threads kind of forming to the side of the caterpillar, that white thread. So it's going to hang the chrysalis back from the stick. So now let's take a look. So the second two largest caterpillars, which were Hungry and Max, they also formed a chrysalis. And you can just barely see the caterpillis behind me, what I call my caterpillar enclosure. So these guys climbed up on the edge, the seam of the enclosure, and created their chrysalis there. And you can see that Hungry has like this brownish black cocoon, and Max has this green cocoon. So Hungry looks a little bit off, like, oh, is something wrong with Hungry? No. So they actually, the swallowtail caterpillar's chrysalis will look different depending on the environment that it's in. So it's trying to camouflage. So Hungry thought that this brownish black color would blend in with the seam of the caterpillis a little bit better than the green. Max might still change color. Max only went into his chrysalis earlier today. So that happened early this morning. And I found that Hungry started out with a green chrysalis, and it changed within a day or two, it changed brown. So Max might still change colors. Let's see if I can see. Still looking pretty green, but the edges look brown. So I think Max might also choosing to be a brown color. Whereas Hugo, the first chrysalis, that one, Hugo's been in a chrysalis for a few days now. So that one I'm pretty sure is going to stick to green. So let's see now the smaller two. So at the bottom, you can see what Munchie and Cruncher looked like last week. So last week, it looks like they were maybe, let's take a look at the instars again. I think they were in their second instar last week, probably their second. And then now it looks like they're in their very last, their fifth instar. So they're almost ready to create a chrysalis. So in 1 week, they went all the way from the second instar to the fifth instar. It's been a little warm here, so that can help encourage them to grow faster. And at the beginning of this week, Cruncher was tinier and Munchie was larger, just like they were last week. But now they're almost, I can't really tell them apart. They look like twinsies. I'm pretty sure which one is Munchie and which one's Cruncher, but they look like twins. So I'm pretty sure that Munchie, the bigger one, is going to form a chrysalis first. So the first one to form a chrysalis, I'll call that one Munchie, and then the second one Cruncher. So these ones are just about ready to form their chrysalis. So again, we'll look at the instars. They went all the way from this second instar to, I'm pretty sure right now they're both in the fifth instar, so just about to make their chrysalis. And the swallowtail caterpillars, they're pretty variable about when they emerge from their chrysalis. They could spend anywhere from like 3 to 6 weeks in their chrysalis. So some of them take a lot longer. I've actually even heard stories of some of these will spend, if you get really late in the season, some of them will stay in the chrysalis over winter and then emerge out into the butterflies. So they can stay in their chrysalis for months depending on temperatures. Right now it's pretty hot, so I think they'll probably be on the shorter end as long as the weather stays hot, which it probably will. So, but we'll have to see. They're not as easy to time as the monarch caterpillars. So let's take a look at our monarchs. So our monarchs, those ones, so we had Tiny, which was the tinier one. That one hatched a few days after the one that I'll call Yvonne. So Yvonne is the first monarch caterpillar I had to emerge from her egg. So, and Yvonne was growing pretty big. So over the last few days, Yvonne was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and Tiny was actually staying pretty tiny. And this brings me to kind of a sad part in our story. So Tiny actually started changing colors. So the picture on the bottom is Tiny last week, and the one on the top is Tiny this week. So Tiny actually passed away, so he didn't make it. As soon as his tail started turning a little bit orangish, I removed Tiny from the enclosure and separated him just in case he was sick. I didn't want him to get the other caterpillars sick. And this is kind of common in nature. Not all caterpillars make it. I'm trying to give the caterpillars the best chance. So I make sure to give them really good, clean milkweed, which they might not get in the wild all the time, because sometimes we spray pesticides on our plants to keep them nice and fresh and free of bugs. And pesticides don't know the difference between a bad bug that we don't want eating our plants and a good bug that we do want eating our plants, like Tiny. So I actually don't know why Tiny passed away. I did a lot of research of what it looks like if Tiny ended up eating pesticides, which it doesn't look like Tiny did, and then what it looks like various monarch diseases, which are quite common. And so I don't know why Tiny died, and it could have just been a failure to thrive, which is kind of a, I don't know, some caterpillars just don't make it. In the wild, only 10%, and actually researchers think this number is smaller, 10% or less of caterpillars actually make it to adulthood. And this is monarch caterpillars, which they do study a lot. So that is specifically for monarchs, because there are a lot of troubles that monarchs are facing. So less than 10% make it. That means if I had 10 caterpillars in the wild in one of my bushes, maybe one would make it to adulthood. So the fact that Tiny didn't make it, that's one of 2 caterpillars. So right now I have 50% of my caterpillars on track to make it. So hopefully Yvonne makes it, forms a chrysalis, and becomes an adult butterfly. But it is still very sad for Tiny. So let's take a look at Yvonne. Yvonne actually, so this is the top picture is a picture from just about an hour ago. So Yvonne shed her last skin, so she molted her last skin. Based on her size, I think she's actually in her last instar already. So you can see the picture at the bottom, she was pretty tiny, and then the picture at the top, just to give you a sense of how big she is. So the picture, this one right here, this is Yvonne yesterday versus a caterpillar that just came out of an egg that same day. So Yvonne is getting pretty big. She's just about 1 inch. You can see she's right at the 1 inch, but I kind of didn't start her right at the beginning. Right here is her molted skin. That little pile of gray stuff at the bottom is what she just molted out of. So based on her size and the length of her little front tentacles, I think she's in her last instar. So we'll take a look at what the instars look like. So last week, I think she was right here in this second instar based on her size. And then now, based on her size, I think she just transformed into this last instar. So she's 1 inch now, and before she forms a chrysalis, she could be up to 2 inches long. So I expect her to form a chrysalis probably in the next 3 days. So she's going to be pretty hungry and chowing down on a bunch of milkweed leaves until she forms a chrysalis. So we're really close to getting her to a chrysalis. So let's take a look now at, on the good news side of things, I found 2 more eggs, which just hatched yesterday. So I have 2 more caterpillars, monarch caterpillars now. So they're very, very tiny. So I'm calling the slightly larger one Lily and the little one Nene. So these are 2 new monarch caterpillars that I added into our mix. So they probably didn't even exist as eggs last week. So these guys are less than 1 week old. It looks like they are both in their first instar. So they haven't started really growing yet. So hopefully these ones make it pretty well. And I think that is all the updates on my caterpillars that I have for you guys. So let me go and see what you guys are saying over here. So let me get out of my pictures so I can go back to full screen and I can show you things if you guys want to see extra things. Let's see. So someone's asking, do caterpillars have gender? So yes, they do. I am arbitrarily, which means like I don't really know the answer. So I don't know if my caterpillars are girls or boys. So they do have a gender, but I have no idea how to tell the gender. So these ones will form into either a boy or a girl butterfly. And a question from last week that I didn't know the answer to. So I said last week that monarchs, the adult butterflies, we can actually tell the difference between the boys and the girls. And I'll show you guys that next week when we talk more about the butterfly stage. So hopefully we should have some chrysalises or chrysalids. So that's a plural of chrysalis. So we should have some chrysalids to look at, hopefully for our monarchs. And we'll talk about the boys versus the girls. So the boy monarchs have thicker black veins, and they have this little like black dot at the bottom. And then the girls look a little bit different. And actually, I think I've got some examples. I just have to go all the way back through all of my pictures, which might take a minute. Actually, I think I can do that without you guys watching, so you don't have to be distracted by that. But the question from last week is, for the anise swallowtails, can we tell the difference between boys and girls? And the answer is no. So the boy and the girl swallowtails actually look pretty much the same. So they don't have any different characteristics like the monarchs do. So for the monarch adult butterflies, once they're an adult, we can tell the difference between boys and girls. But for the swallowtail, at no point can we tell the difference. So let's take a look here. Oh, I misspoke just a second ago. So I said that the boys have thicker lines. Actually, the girls have thicker lines. So this monarch here is a girl. She has very thick black veins in between her orange spots. Whereas the other two, so this one here and this one here, these are boy monarchs. And I can tell that the main way that I can tell is they have skinnier black veins, so skinnier black lines. And then right down here at the bottom on their rear wing, there's a little spot in one of the veins that the girls don't have. So here, the girl monarch doesn't have any spots down here, but the boy monarch, even in the distance, you can see he's got a little spot on the bottom of his back wing, right in the middle of one of the veins. So that's how you can tell the difference between a girl and a boy monarch. So let's see if we've got some other questions here. Let's see. What will I do when they become butterflies? So when these become butterflies, I will probably let them dry out for a minute. I might offer them some nectar or put some flowers in with them, but I actually won't keep them in the cage very long. So that picture of the butterflies I just showed you, those are butterflies I raised in a previous year. And I actually released them. So I don't keep them for very long. I usually snap some pictures of them and then let them go so that way the girl butterflies can go find a boy butterfly and then start laying eggs to create more caterpillars. So that's what I'm going to do with my butterflies is I'm going to release them into the wild and hope that they start laying more eggs. So especially for the monarchs, which are in a lot of trouble, so they have a lot of problems. So I really want to get more monarchs out there. I just got a bunch of milkweed from a plant nursery the other day. And it's actually, so I'm here in California, and here in California, they have to spray, it's a very natural pesticide called BT, but and it's, if I leave the plants out in the sun, this pesticide actually just degrades and it's totally fine for the monarchs. But I shouldn't feed it to my caterpillars for about 2 weeks. So I'm keeping it in a safe spot where the butterflies can't find it. It's got sun, so it's going to help degrade that pesticide. And I'm going to wash off those leaves before I offer them to a caterpillar. So I'm probably going to keep those for a little bit extra time, at least 2 weeks away from my caterpillars. But I'm trying to put a lot more milkweed in my yard because right now I don't have very much. I actually have a lot more caterpillars than I have milkweed available right now. So I'm getting some milkweed from other people around me that raise monarchs. So I found there's actually a bunch of people who breed monarchs here in Alameda. And there's a woman just down the street from me that has hundreds of monarch caterpillars. So she gave me some of her milkweed because she has quite a lot. So let's see. Who had the idea for Lily and Nene? I actually don't remember. It was someone who came to class last week and typed it in there. So I don't know exactly who said all the names, but at the end of the lesson, I wrote down all of the names. So it was someone who was watching that gave all of the names for the caterpillar. So I didn't make up any of those names. You guys made up all those names. So let's see. Oh, I didn't name one Jewel. So I think Jewel is another. If I find a new caterpillar, I'm going to write it down now. So if I find a new caterpillar, I will name it Jewel. So I think I got to all of the questions. Oh, and someone said, my butterflies are very cute. Thank you very much. I think so too. I really like the caterpillars and how big they're getting. You can actually see some of the caterpillars. This is Crunchy and Muncher, which are getting pretty big right now. Again, you can see that they're nearly identical in size. So they're getting pretty big here. I think this one's a little closer to the camera, so it maybe looks larger. But if I spin them around, you can see they are looking pretty big. So I think they're pretty cool looking right now. And actually, just so you can get a size, so Yvonne, the monarch caterpillar, is 1 inch. these ones, let's see if we can measure. They're like 1.75 inches. So almost 2 inches long. So these caterpillars are getting pretty big. So let me put them back in here so that they can finish eating. So they are eating a lot now. They ate, when they were tinier, they didn't eat very much. Now they're eating quite a lot. So let's see, I think I've answered all of the questions. So for next time, so on Thursday, I've had a lot of requests to see the sheep and whatnot. So this Thursday, I'm going to do another garden lesson. So I'm going to be making some tea, and I think what most people would call spa water, because it's really hot right now. So I'm going to show you some of the plants I use for tea and some of the plants I use for refreshing ice drinks. So we're going to make some drinks out of stuff in my garden. And then next week, we're going to do one last update on the caterpillars, and it's actually going to be a mega update class. So we're going to do an update on the caterpillars and our other 2 weekly projects. So our other 2 weekly projects, right before this one, we did seedlings. So we were growing radishes, carrots, pumpkins, and sunflowers. So we're going to do an update and see where those have gotten in the last 3 weeks that we've been looking at caterpillars. So we're going to check in on our plants, see how big they got. And then I'm going to do an update on the project we did even before that, which was the chick updates. So we did 5 weeks of chick updates to see how they were growing. And now those chicks are about 5 weeks bigger than that. So they're about they'll be about 10 or 11 weeks when I show you guys what they look like next week. So we'll do a mega update on Tuesday, and then next Thursday, so this Thursday we're doing the garden tea and garden ice drinks, but next Thursday I'm going to do an open farm tour. So instead of being in here in my office, I'm going to figure out how to get internet better back out in my farm. So I'm going to be outside. You guys can ask me any questions. So we don't have a lesson plan. It's going to be open. And as you could see today, people sent me pictures of their own caterpillars. So if you have caterpillars and you want to show me, send me caterpillar pictures. And for next Thursday, I would love to see what kind of animals you guys have. So if you guys want to share your animals with me, you can send me a picture. I think there's some contact information. So ask your parents if you can share pictures of your pets. And I'm not going to say whose pets it is, just because we've got a lot of different people watching. So you can tell me the name of your pet and a picture of your pet. So if you send me those things, I will share all of your guys' pets. So you can show me what your farm looks like, and I'll show you my farm, and you can ask me any question about any animal, and I'll have them out with me while we're looking at them. Thank you guys so much for watching this caterpillar update. We'll do one more caterpillar update and mega update next Tuesday, and hopefully I see you Thursday for garden tea and garden ice drinks. So bye.